It's a new year, it's a new beginning, and Demolition has a new book. This is Dr Demolition by Dr Terry Quarmby, and we're about to speak to Terry about why he wrote the book and what he hopes to achieve with it. So I guess the first question then, Terry, is why did you write the book, and perhaps more specifically, why did you write it now?
I think the main answer is because when I've been with practitioners and friends in the past, invariably the talk comes around to, our experiences, what we've done, where we've been, what we've seen, how did we get on with it, what were the gains from it, also what were the problems, and things like that. And then at the end of 2019, just after my 70th, I got to thinking that actually this is probably the right time to put my record down in writing, if you like, or to put my story in writing, because inevitably I'm in the last throes of my profession, if you like. So, and then of course, the following year in February, it was becoming obvious that things were not going to be the same as they had been the previous year. And then we got down into lockdown, where I found I had a bit of time on my hands, because I didn't go in the office for 5 weeks. And probably just as importantly, I didn't really have a reason not to do it at that stage.
So the COVID crisis blew some good after all. One of the things that really struck me when I read it before it was published and subsequently is just the sheer depth of your memory. The fact that you can remember so many places and faces and recollections. Do you keep a diary or something, or is that just pure memory?
Yeah, I've noticed over the years that my short-term memory is pretty bad, but my long-term memory seems to get better as each year goes on. So it's amazing, actually, when you stop and think about things that have happened in your life. It's quite amazing, actually, how much really comes back to you,
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, one of the things that really astounded me, though, was just the depth of those memories. I mean, you even down to sort of the weather on specific days, and what various people said. I can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning. So yes, it's a remarkable recollection that you've got there.
Well, I've been lucky in a way that my career, if you like, has followed a fairly linear process. In that I started one job in a particular year, it's lasted for a certain period of time, and then I've moved on to the next one. So, if you take that, as I say, in that linear period, it's quite easy to then determine what year, what month it might have been. I mean, all right, I might not have been absolutely exact in all of my dates, but I think I'm pretty near somewhere anyway.
No, absolutely. Now, even some of the people in the industry that know you best, I think, have been quite surprised by some of the content. The book is brutally honest, isn't it? Which I guess most of us would come to expect from you anyway.
Yeah, I can imagine that some people may think that way, but I did sit and think about what it was I was actually going to say, and whether I might offend people. But at the end of the day, I thought, if I'm going to tell my story, I need to tell it warts and all. But I will willingly admit, actually, that some of the warts I've left unsaid, so that I didn't cause offence to anybody. And I hope that I haven't caused offence, actually. But I think you've got to be honest with yourself. because I think we all realise, don't we, that lies are very easily uncovered.
Yeah, again, I think one of the things that stood out for me was, and it was the self-honesty really that stood out for my various readings of the book. You know, I certainly couldn't see any reason why anyone would be offended, but you know, you were very, very open about some of the things that you got up to in the past, which I guess sort of leads on to our next question, because one of the things that really makes the book stand out for me is that the apparent contradiction that sort of seems to lie at the very heart of the book, in the fact that you spent almost your entire life railing against authority and the establishment, and that yet you ended up as the head of a recognized institute, promoting professional development and you know, encouraging people to pursue academic pursuits. The two things don't seem to go together, do they?
I don't know. It's quite a difficult question to answer, really, but I think you could probably sum it up by saying you can call it growing up, actually. I think if you start, you know, if you're somebody like myself who started from humble beginnings in a place where people didn't have that much to look forward to, or certainly didn't have a lot of money to do anything with, you either tend to go along with the flow and become one of the herd, or you try to stand out and try to be somebody different than what you may end up being, you know, as everybody else is. I think the one thing in my favour from a very early age, and whether that was because of my lack of family upbringing, if you like, or the lack of discipline I had from a fatherly figure, was the fact that I had a large work ethic. I didn't mind hard work, and I listened, I watched my peers to see what they did and how they did it, and I tried to emulate them. And over the years, that's the sort of ethos I've had in not being afraid to tackle anything, not being afraid of the mistakes I've made, actually, and I've made quite a lot of mistakes, as you can read in the book. But I think I've learned from them, and I've tried not to repeat them. I hope I haven't repeated them in later years. So I think that's the basis, really, is, yeah, grow up, you know, have your time, as we all have. There's no doubt at all. We've all sown our wild oats, if you like. But when it comes time to start accepting that bit of responsibility, then, yeah, I think that's what you've got to do. You know, and age as well is a big factor. They always say, don't they, that with age comes wisdom. But what I found is not, perhaps that's true, but what I found is that with age, and particularly if you want to express your opinion, the older you become, the more that people tend to listen to what you have to say. And if you're like me, and a little bit outspoken, and you like to give your opinion, then with that comes the additional responsibility as well, and you have to be able to accept that you need to be and act responsible.
Given the fact that you just looked at your own life in a very sort of transparent way, if you had the chance to go back and meet your 15, 20-year-old self, what advice would you give you?
Oh, crikey. Now, there's a thing. That's like watching Back to the Future film, isn't it? You know? Perhaps I shouldn't have done that, you know? Because I did that. Don't you do that, you know? Don't repeat the same mistakes. But, you know, that's probably a bit of a nonsense, really, isn't it? Because as I've just stated, We all make mistakes. Every single one of us makes a mistake. I've never met anybody yet that has been faultless in whether they've said something or done something. You can always find a fault somewhere in every activity, every action, or every deed, or every word that's ever been spoken. But I think the key really is to learn from those mistakes and don't repeat them.
One of the comments that I saw from one of the very early readers of the book was, we need to get down on paper the thoughts, experiences, and knowledge of people like yourselves before you retire, and we lose all that wisdom. And I know you've been banging that drum for quite some time from an academic perspective of getting, particularly with the Institute of Demolition Engineers, getting academic papers on the subject of demolition and related things. But even just that personal experience of growing up, you know, we are in danger of having a lost generation of knowledge and experience and wisdom, aren't we?
Yeah, that's probably quite true, actually. And I don't think we're the only industry sector, you know, that feels that. I think there's quite a few other sectors that are experiencing the same problem that we've got, and that is youngsters coming through or wanting to come into the business in the first place. There's a heck of a lot of activity in the IT world now, isn't there? You know, and although we've had to embrace IT in a lot of its guises, we're still very much a hands-on industry, and it's very difficult to get somebody to come along and want to use their hands and also to apply their brains and their logic in solving problems that everyday problems that all of us have on our jobs. And as I stated earlier, I tended to listen and watch my peers, what they did, and I tried to learn from that. And certainly when I first started operating heavy plant or any type of plant or vehicles, we had the opportunity, if we chose to do that. You know, our employers were only too happy to see us or acknowledge the fact that we wanted to have a go and let's try and get that experience and that knowledge. Our problem today, of course, is that we've got the workplace regulations and we've also got health and safety law, which put constraints on individuals, such as the ones I learned from, actually showing you in the workplace how to do something. It's so much more difficult today to do that. And so it's more important than ever to set a record or get a record written down. You know, I've been asked many times, you know, to write a book about my experiences or to present in seminars or presentations up and down the country where we've had our meetings, to get that knowledge out into the ethos, if you like. So yeah, I think it is important to get things down in writing so that when others come along behind us, they've at least got something that they can use as text, because, you know, we are woefully inadequate, aren't we, in our sector about getting the written word down for those coming along behind us to use.
No, I totally agree. And it's interesting that you should mention sort of the Health and Safety at Work Act and that kind of thing, because when you speak to any of the current generation of NFDC members or demolition company principals, most of them were on and off demolition sites with their fathers or grandfathers at 8, 9, 10 years old. That's Absolutely. How they learn and everything else. And, you know, I certainly wouldn't want to go back to the bad old days, but it feels that sometimes that we went a bit too far with that, and we've lost that ability to give people that gentle introduction from a very young age. And as you say, if it ends up being in book form or on iPad form or computer game form, maybe that's something we really need to think about.
Yeah, and we shouldn't shoot ourselves in the foot either. And I know that, such as the NFDC, do not or frown upon, or I can't really remember whether it's the written word or not. I think it probably is, that operators under 21 years of age will not put their bums on a machine on a demolition site. And yet the transport industry has changed from 21 years old being an HGV driver to 18 now. So I think, things like that really have to change, don't they? Because 18-year-olds now are much more mature than probably we were when we were 18. And if you've got somebody of that age, 18-year-olds, that is mature and is capable of operating a machine correctly, efficiently, why not? Let's get them on. The earlier age, the better.
There's a check built in there anyway, isn't there? Because I always think this with, particularly with a big high reach or something like that, you're not going to throw the keys of a high reach to somebody that's fresh out of school. You're going to start them off on an old dog machine and park them in a corner somewhere and let them knock the rough edges off, aren't you?
Oh, Mark, we don't run old dogs anymore. I would stand up in front of anybody that operates plants in either the construction industry or the mining or quarrying or the demolition industry, and I would say that in general, the machines that demolition contractors run are far more efficient. They're far more up together than in any other sector. And in general, when we sell our machines on now, our residuals are high as well. So, our industry sector in terms of mechanical plant and machinery operation has changed dramatically.
I totally agree. Now, I guess my final question for now, I'm sure other people will have more questions as the book starts to land on desks, but it really came across that you obviously enjoy the writing process. Are you done with the publishing world now, or you got other plans in mind for future books as well?
Well, I have been thinking about it, actually. And just on that subject that we were discussing a moment ago, I think that there is a requirement for a book on plant and equipment in the demolition industry. Let's face it, from the beginnings of the NFDC after the Second World War, when it became apparent quite quickly that manual labour alone would not be sufficient to tackle the amount of work that was out there. And then plant and machinery uses came in, albeit in its basic form. But over the years, the plant and machinery we use has become extremely technical, very innovative, not just in its use alone, but also in its manufacture and design. So I think a book talking about our plant and our machinery usage and the activities that they've been put to and the problems that we've had along the way and we've managed to solve, and something along those lines, rather than something that's just looking at a specification of a machine, which is where you can get from any manufacturer, can't you? But what you can't get from a manufacturer is what you can do with that machine, how you can put it to work, and what benefits there are from using that particular piece of plant. I think that's something that would probably interest people of heavy machinery.
It's interesting that you should go back to heavy machinery, because one of the standout parts of the book, from my perspective, was you kind of experienced a mini industrial revolution. There's a very interesting part in the book where you're talking about the first time you saw a proper, as we consider it now, a proper hydraulic excavator on a job, and you said in the book you saw from that very moment, this is the way we're going.
Absolutely, yeah. When we had that Cat 245 turn up nobody in our industry that I'm aware of at that moment in time had ever seen a 50-ton excavator on a demolition job. Even at Thomas Ward's that I was at for quite a number of years, we had small excavators such as Atlases and John Deere's, which Ward's were an agent for, but all we used to do was hang a magnet on them, and they used to clear the job up at the end, picking up all the loose bits of metal that were left around the site. So to have a machine that size come onto a job and create such mayhem in such a short period of time, that really, I think, was the start for me to determine that, this is a massive change that's coming along.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you look at the industry now with the use of technology, as you've mentioned, not just on plant, but the way that jobs are specified and the way that they're planned and scheduled and all that kind of thing. We're kind of in another revolution now, aren't we? The technological revolution. I mean, the very fact that I'm speaking to you over the internet at the moment, that's where we are now, isn't it?
Absolutely. Another little twist at this moment in time is with this COVID-19 pandemic, I've benefited from that in one respect, and that is I've managed to break the chains that were tying me to my office. And for this last year, on quite a number of occasions, I've managed to get my bum sat on the seats of one of our demolition machines on a fairly regular basis. And it's been a defining moment in my life, and I've really enjoyed it. And in fact, come Monday, I shall be operating our high reach machine on a site in Torquay. So, yeah, I'm going to enjoy it while I can.
No, fair play to you, Terry. Look, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, as it always is. I wish you every success with the book. I will add a link to where people can buy it once this show is uploaded. But in the meantime, very best of luck with whatever you're doing in the future, and well, keep in touch and good luck with the book.
Thanks very much, Mark. All the best.
All the best.